class. Today we're going to talk about section 5.1, operations with polynomials, and this will be just over page 1. So let's start off with our standardized test practice. It says find the exact solutions for the opposite of x squared plus 8x minus 12 equals 0 using the method of your choice. Well, since we just finished talking about quadratic formula, why don't we solve it using the quadratic formula? So A would be -1, B is 8, and C is -12. So we take the opposite of 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times -1 times -12, all divided by 2 times -1. So we simplify. We have -8 plus or minus the square root of 64 plus 48, all divided by -2. 64 plus 48 is 112, I think. Let's see. Four minus 4 times A times C. I feel like I have something wrong on here. Oh, that should be a minus right here. See, sometimes I really have to think about my signs. There's 1, 2, 3 negatives, so this is a -4e8. That makes it better. So now we have -8 plus or minus the square root of 16 over -2. So that would be -8 plus or minus 4 over -2. So if we had -8 plus 4, that would be -4 over -2 would be 2. So one of our solutions is 2. -8 minus 4 is -12. Divided by -2 would be 6. So it looks like A is our answer. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is working with multiplication of and division of monomials, and some of them will have negative exponents. So what I want you to know is that if you want to make an exponent positive, which you do, you always want to express your exponents as a positive. What you do is you take the multiplicative inverse of the number, meaning a to the -n is equivalent to 1 over a to the n. So if you take the inverse, imagine a 1 underneath this and then flip it over. This one you would flip over, have a 1 on the bottom, so we really don't need to write that. This one would be a to the n. So that's how you deal with negative exponents. All right, to refresh you, you've learned these in Algebra 1, but there are some rules. When you simplify an expression, you rewrite it without powers of powers, parentheses, or negative exponents. Each base appears only once, and all fractions are in simplest form. The following properties are useful when simplifying expressions. The first one, the product of powers, means that when you multiply terms with the same base, the base is a, what you do is you add their powers. This would be a to the m plus n. When you divide terms with the same base, again the base is a, this would be a to the m minus n. Now here's some properties of powers. If you're raising a power to another power, you multiply the powers together. So this would be a to the mn. If you've got multiple terms in parentheses, each one gets raised to the power. So this would be a to the m and b to the m. Same thing with dividing. You would raise both the numerator and the denominator to the power. A to the n, b to the n. Now, this one was to the negative power of n. So take the reciprocal and then make the power positive. So this would be b to the n over a to the n. And I think that I was going to write this as, let's do this. Think of this as the second part. It's b over a to the n, which simplifies to this. Okay, so those are some of the properties that we use when we're simplifying expressions. Now let's try some practice problems. So b to the fourth times b to the third means we just take b to the 4 plus 3, which is b to the 7th. C to the fifth times c squared times c squared would be c 5 plus 2 plus 2, which is c the 9th. This one we would add the powers, so we would have a negative 4 plus negative 3, which is a to the negative 7. However, we don't leave it with a negative exponent, so this equals 1 over a to the 7th. On the last one, we would have x 5 plus a negative 4. A single x is a 1. So this would give us 6 minus 4 would give us x squared. So those are some examples working with the product rule. Now we're going to work with the power of a power rule. So what you do here is you take 2 to the 5th, a to the 4th to the 5th, and you simplify. 2 to the 5th should be 32. You can multiply 2 out 5 times. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And a would be to the 20th. On the second one, first thing we would do is to rewrite as 2 squared x squared times 4 squared y squared. Then I would simplify my numbers with power, so I had 4x squared times 16y squared, which would be 64x squared y squared. Now when you're working with the quotient rule, my suggestion would be to separate it out. In other words, write it as 24 over 3 times w, and I'm going to go ahead and put the first, over w to the third times z to the 7th over z to the 5th. So if I divide here, I have 8, and I would have w 1 minus 3, and I would have z 7 minus 2. So let's simplify this. 8w to the negative 2 z to the fifth. And remember, we can't have a negative exponent. So this is equivalent to 8z to the fifth over w squared. So take and break into parts. A to the fourth over a to the seventh times b to the first over b squared times c to the eighth over c to the negative 2. So we would have a 4 minus 7, b 1 minus 2, c 8 minus negative 2. That would give us a negative 3, b negative 1, and c to the 10th. So bring the negative powers down. When we put the b down, we don't need to add it to the first power. So we have c to the 10th over a to the third b. Okay, I think I have a couple more on page 1. All right, on I, what you do is you take x squared times 2y squared over x squared, y 3 times 2. Simplify here first, x to the 4th, y squared over x squared, y to the 6th. Then we do our subtraction, so we would have x 4 minus 2, y 2 minus 6, which would give us x squared, y to the negative 4, which equals x squared over y to the 4th. Now I'm going to also give you a suggestion that would make this one a lot quicker. Another way you can do it is to simplify within the parentheses first. So if I did it that way, let me just change colors. What I could do is I would have an x 2 minus 1 right here, and I'd have a y 1 minus 3. That would give me an x, y, negative 2. So rewrite that as x over y squared. Then take the power on the outside. X squared over y squared squared gives you this same answer, x squared over y to the 4th. So it's whichever way you want to do it. I believe that on the last one, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to ignore the power, and I'm going to simplify within the parenthesis. So I'll have p 1 minus 3, t 4 minus 2. Notice that the r's cancel. So this would give me p negative 2 t squared. I'm going to go ahead now and raise them to the power. Then I'll move the negative exponent around. So this would give me p negative 2 times negative 1 t 2 times negative 1. So p would be squared, and t would be to the negative 2 power. So my final answer would be p squared over t squared. Okay, I hope that was just a refresher for you guys, that you kind of remember those from Algebra 1. We will look at FOIL on page 2, and we'll do that next time. For now, I hope you have a great day.